Pillars is an agency that provides shelter support and solutions to address housing needs in our community. We do so innovatively and effectively to ensure that experiences of homelessness are rare and brief. The goal, of course, is that everyone has a place to call home. And you see our core values, with grit being key among them. Grit has been especially important this past year. You'll hear that from Joe as the morning proceeds. Joe, our executive director. We provide a continuum of services, which you see depicted here, all the way from prevention and street outreach to affordable housing and everything in between. We're probably best known for our 2 shelters, but there is a whole suite of services that we provide along the continuums, from supportive housing to affordable housing and beyond. What we'll cover this morning includes, as I mentioned, the year behind us. We want to remember a couple of folks who have been key in the history of our organization, and then recognize again our volunteer of the year, who happens to be with us this morning, and our community partner of the year. So you have a lot to look forward to, and chief among those things is Joe Mauthe, our executive director. So here he comes. Joe, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. It is always a real kind of pleasure and privilege to be able to talk about what we do, and especially for people who are interested in that and supportive of it, and kind of get it from a mission standpoint and what we're trying to do here in the big picture. So a good place for us to start is just a reminder of who's on the leadership team here. I could talk a lot about this team. Let me just say a couple of things. The newest member of our team is Kathy Dean, new crisis housing director. If you've joined us in the past or know of us, you know that was Mauthe Baldwin, and Mauthe and her family will be relocating out to the West Coast to Eugene, Oregon. We are happy to have Kathy back on the team, who previously had been 6 years with Pillars and Homeless Connections prior to that, and has the unique experience and skill set of having kind of started out at our frontline direct service shelter client advocate, then moved into case manager roles, team leader roles, shelter manager roles, took a little departure to work for one of our really treasured partners in the community, Levin, and was a client services director there, and just recently came back. So it's now on day 4 of kind of being back in the Pillars family. The other names and faces you see there should be familiar if you've been around for a while. With one vacancy, a lot of you know Betsy Bournes, who was managing the Resource Center. Friday was Betsy's last day, and she moved on to an agency called Safe Families, which has been near and dear to her heart, and she actually helped bring to the area as part of the work she did pre-Pillars on a thing called Project Rush that a lot of you know about. So the one thing I'll say about this collection of people is it is a very capable leadership team. You know, I sometimes tend to maybe over analogies and metaphors. I was going to say we're battle hardened, but that's probably not the right word. But there's not a lot that can happen in our world, and a lot can happen in our world, but there's not a lot that somebody here hasn't seen, experienced, worked through, and knows how to approach it. So it's a very capable, very experienced, very dedicated and passionate team that's leading Pillars right now, and that is really exceptional. I think what we bring to bear from a leadership perspective. So let's get into a little report to the community. Cover a lot of things about what's happened over the last year, and I think a good point for all of us is this quote by Teddy Roosevelt that I really like, which is, "Far and away the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing." So we are going to talk for the remainder of our time about work worth doing and working hard at it. Teddy Roosevelt's on the left there, and that's me and Teddy Roosevelt on the right. Actually, last year on vacation, we came through a little town, Medora, South Dakota, and there was a Teddy Roosevelt impersonator, and I was totally captivated by him and got a chance to meet him. I thought I'd put that in just for a little bit of fun, but this is it. I mean, this is the prize that life has to offer, is to give of ourselves, whether we're doing that directly, as in we got a Pillars name tag on our chest, or you're on this call or somewhere in the community and you equally get, right, that this is important work and you're part of the Pillars team in the way that you contribute through volunteerism, through financial donations, through education and awareness, through prayers. We need it all, right? And we've got a big and capable team out there. So if we move on from there, I'll give you kind of the headlines. Looking back, this is nothing more than a little reflection on, so what was 2021 really for us anyway? And kind of summarized it in 4 headlines. And the first one of those is that, you know, COVID just didn't give up. And I know we all know that. We all know that personally. We all know that kind of from our own professional experiences and relationships as well. But it just kept coming for us and for everybody. For us, that meant, just to put some numbers on that, that meant in 2021, we had 53 clients that we served that tested positive for COVID. And all of that took some action to be able to make sure that we could keep shelters safe and we could keep our clients and their families safe. We had another 23 clients that we needed to quarantine because of exposure to COVID. We had another 23 staff members who tested positive for COVID and had to stay off of work for a week to 10 days to 2 weeks and cover all of that. So it certainly presented its challenges, and we kind of tried to continue to respond and pivot in the way that we needed to. And we did that by creating spots at shelter where we could effectively isolate or quarantine, by using local hotels where possible, and with the ups and downs of that, including Packers season, which had an impact on that as well, of filling up hotels at times, and including using a couple of our own agency-owned apartments that we designated as isolation units, so that anytime we knew that somebody tested positive for COVID, we were able to get them to a place away from a shelter setting and to a place where they could be safe themselves, as well as manage through whatever COVID brought for them. The second headline, I think, is throughout all of that, our programs and services are more critical than ever. You know, dealing with issues of poverty and housing instability and mental health and addiction is always tough. But you put a pandemic on top of that impacts employment and isolation and income and everybody's general kind of mood, demeanor, and what's open around town. It is all the more important that services like Pillars and others that provide basic needs continues to operate a little bit at all costs, because once those last strands of our social safety net start to break apart, right, we get into scenarios that nobody really wants to talk about. So one of the things we're proudest of is we delivered all of our programs and services all year long and found a way to manage through that. And that's not possible without that third headline, that the community continues to rise to the challenge. This is not work that we can do alone. It's not work that we sanction on our own. It's work that the community desires and supports. And we're on the delivery end of that, but the community is on the part of that values it and provides the resources to make it happen. And we'll talk a little bit more of that when we talk about the financials. But again, we are just so grateful to be here and to have the support we have. And in all of this, you'll hear about it. Our team, I think, just continues to be amazing to be able to work through that and deliver that. And on the right, you'll see on the top is a donation from I think it's Riverview Lutheran School, who came and delivered things again as a way to do their outreach. And on the bottom, I really like, so despite all of this, there's our street outreach worker, Emily, who took a little bit of time to help a family of ducks that was in distress. So you can see the mother duck on the right, and some of her babies went down the sewer. And just because we're in the helping business, Emily took it upon herself to help get the ducklings out of the sewer. And you can see there one of our finest, Appleton Police Department was present just to make sure there was no foul play going on at that time. So Worked a long time on that one. Okay, moving on. My last point was talking about the Pillars team, and I want to give you a sense of that team, maybe in an indirect way. One of the things that we started last fall around November was we always have a desire to be a great place to work and a place where people can do their best work. So we worked with the Lumix and the UTech group to start an assessment of our culture and to talk about how we can improve the culture at Pillars. We did a lot of things with that and are continuing to, but one of the things that, and we just got back a couple of weeks ago, is a survey that we put together, 75 questions to talk about everything about what's your job and are you receiving the training you need, and all of those things you would see in an employee survey. Well, let me share four responses that give, if you have to know who we are, these are probably the best ones. Now, these are all on a 6-point scale. So the scale, and that's important. So the scale goes from 1 to 6, from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So I'm showing you on these questions, anybody who gave it a 5 or a 6, who was really trending on the right side of that scale, I agree, I agree, and I strongly agree with this.
Don't panic, Joe.
And while Lisa gets,
I lost advanced capability, so I'm gonna fix that.
While Lisa gets the PowerPoint back, I could talk through that. There's 4 statements that really stood out. So one of those was that the mission of Pillars motivates me to continue to work here. We had 86% of our employees say, yeah, I am motivated to work. I am here because of the mission, right? This is not just a job. I'm here because of the mission. And then we asked, the question was, when my team is faced with a difficult problem, we can usually find a way out of it. 86% of the people said yes to that. And then we said, when I need help, my coworkers will pitch in and give me the support I need. 87%. And then we get to my team deals effectively with unexpected challenges, 90%. So we've got this vast majority of people here like, I get it. I'm here for the right reason. I am ready to fight the fight. Bring it on. And I'm telling you, that is a team that you want to have at any time. And it's a team you need to have when you've got a pandemic right in front of you. So that's a little bit of who we are. Now let's talk about
that. Sounds good.
As a report to the community, a little bit of, so what are the numbers? And so from, as Lisa started, it's the thing that is easy to understand and maybe most visible in our community is our crisis housing. And crisis housing really consists of 2 shelters in our daytime resource center. It's our street outreach work and everything that happens for people who are in crisis, people who don't have another place to call home. Any other call they've made has not worked for, can I stay with you on your couch or in your apartment? And they've come to us. And I won't repeat all those numbers to you, but you can see at the adult shelter and the adult family shelter, the number of people that we're serving over a period of a year. And I think more importantly, the number of nights of sleep that are provided. Because if for me, if I get to like one quantitative thing about my day, it's like, did I have a good night's sleep? And if I didn't, tomorrow's a harder day. And if I did, I feel a little bit more hopeful and a little bit more capable to address any challenges that come. So in those 2 shelters, what do we have there? 40,000 nights of better quality sleep, because people are going to sleep somewhere, and that might otherwise be literally in a park, under a bench, in the back of your car, in a parking ramp. In this case, it's in a place that's warm. After you've had a meal, you can get yourself clean. You can talk to a case manager. You can start being hopeful about the future. The Resource Center is a daytime service and street outreach connected with over 100 people who, for some reason, weren't yet ready even to make it into shelter and try to make that connection. And we've got, I'll mention it later, Jennifer Winding on the call, who is learning about Pillars so that she can help with recruiting. And one of the things she said was, when I came and I saw it, I got it. This next slide is, she's like, I got it. I got what is special about Pillars. It's not just about shelter and crisis housing. It's about the real value of home. It's about what comes next. And it's about when I leave shelter, getting into a home that I can call my own, and I can lock the door on, and I can breathe easier, and I've got access to supportive services like a case manager who's going to help me figure out what comes next and get prepared for another level of independence for me and my family. So in supportive housing, that's that housing that is not only affordable, but comes with that case management support. 95 adults and 21 children served last year as that next step out of shelter. And just to break my linear sequence here, the prevention side of that also said, let's try to catch people before you ever experience homelessness. Let's try and maintain some stability where you are, when you are, before you have to come through our shelter doors. And we have beefed up our services there, and we've got great results with that. And you can see there again, over 300 people served. And the last part of that pillars continuum, that chart that Lisa showed on I think the second slide, is the stable housing part. And now things, we go from this crisis housing to supportive housing, and now we're in stable housing, where you really have your own place. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that it is safe and quality and affordable, but you might not need the same level of support and services that you've needed thus far on your journey. And I'll just point you to the last point of this. The difference on average for those individuals and families staying in pillars stable housing compared to what they would on average have to pay in the community if they were able to get that housing is over $400 a month. And if you are in or on the cusp of poverty, what will $400 a month do for you in terms of caring for your family, in terms of maintaining your transportation, of getting the medicine and mental health support you need? So that's where we continue to provide supports to allow somebody to progress on their journey. The picture here, which I really love, is from one of our supportive housing programs. It's our Ascend Young Adult program. And we had the opportunity to go out to dinner with dinner provided by a generous donor. And we said, let's go out to dinner. Let's have a dinner etiquette. So you can see Rachel Youngquist on the left there, and a number of members of her team took the young adults out to dinner, and we called it dinner etiquette of let's get comfortable going to a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant, and what is everything that comes with that. Unless you think this is about learning which side your butter dish is on and which side your water glass is on, that's all fine and good. But what this is planting a seed of hope that, one, I'm comfortable doing this. I may never have done this growing up. This might be new ground for me. I'm comfortable doing it. And now maybe I have an expectation that this is what my future looks like, right? We talked about have conversation with people at the table, put your phone down, right? Engage in this. And now all of a sudden we're starting to normalize something that all of us take for granted, maybe take for granted a couple of times a week, which is now new behavior and new expectations for young adults who are starting to think about, what does my life look like? One of the things we're most proud of, I think, through a pandemic is not only to hold on. I gave you a little message of that, a survival message of we're gonna, we kept it going, we kept the shop open, and we kept serving in the way we need to serve. Throughout all of that, there was a greater need in our community, and we responded to that need with some program enhancements. So with all of this, and in a variety of supportive mechanisms behind it, we added a case manager at our adult shelter, knowing that that case management is a little bit of the secret sauce that helps people move along more efficiently and more effectively. We added yet another single room occupancy home, which you can see in the picture there. And this is a home that is a next step typically out of adult shelter for a single person that we make affordable by renting out one bedroom at a time and living commonly in a house and having case management available on a regular basis to help again with that journey. We added a new services advocate to make sure that we knew that there would be more people experiencing homelessness for the first time during the pandemic, especially after eviction moratoriums ended and things like that. So we wanted to be more responsive on the front end We added, as I mentioned earlier, on our prevention work, another case manager there. So we continued to beef up, I think, strategically for what the community needed at this time. You see the single room occupancy home at the top there. You see, and maybe you can read it. This is a whiteboard that we have there, and our supportive services director. I was doing a walkthrough of the house just to see how everything looked before everybody moved in, and I saw this nice note that Tara Prawl put on there. And if you read through that, it is just a loving message of welcome to your new home. We're so glad you're here. This is a fresh start on life for you. Let's make the most of it together. Peace and hope. And what you see on the bottom are, of those 4 people, 3 of those are participants in our single room occupancy program, and they felt it important to give back. So they are serving dinner at our adult and family shelter. And despite the masks, I think you can see the pride on their faces on being on the other side of the serving line, and knowing that they're in a different spot than they might have been when they were coming through shelter. So those are some things we added. We also had the opportunity to be able to kind of stabilize and upgrade some of our operations. So real quickly, so we knew that, you know, our turnover was high, like a lot of businesses. Salaries were going up. The job market was tight. We had, I was going to say relatively, we had very high turnover for a variety of reasons. So we were able to bump up our starting salaries, especially for anybody who's in a direct service role. We enhanced, especially our shelters, by improving security on sites and making things kind of more livable and making some needed repairs. And then I'll just touch on the last one. We had the opportunity to install some backup generators, and all of these things come from a variety of opportunities, you know, and one of the opportunities through COVID was additional funding to do some of these kind of things. And I have to say the city of Appleton has been a great partner of being able to access some of those that government funds and talk about how can we make important and real and meaningful improvements and impacts and expansions to the work we do. So just a quick story on the backup generators, and this is one of my of all the phone pictures I have in my phone over the last couple of years. This is one of my favorites, and I'll tell you what's happening. And it's not authentic to 2021, but so this is the one picture I cheated on in the slide deck. This is from 2019, I think June, when a big storm came through town, and a lot of you might remember that we were without power for 2 days. 2 days without power in a shelter is tough. 2 days without power in a shelter in the middle of a city without power is really tough. And we didn't know what to do. And there was, you know, there's now a lot of alternatives to say, oh, well, I guess everybody to themselves. So we hunkered down. We made the best of what we can. We got a lot of portable lights and we put them around to make sure that that we had visibility and safety, but it was really it was a hunker down. No air conditioning, no ability to have power to do things. And I happened to be at the adult shelter out on College Avenue, and this crew showed up and said, we're volunteers. We signed up for dinner tonight. I said, well, we don't have power. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. We'll bring in sandwiches or something. And they said, no, we're here to volunteer, and we're going to start with watermelon because everybody needs a cool snack on a hot sweltering day stuck in shelter. I said, I'm sorry, but there's no light in the kitchen. I don't know that we're going to be able to do this. And they all but pushed me aside, went to the kitchen, took their watermelons out, held their cell phones up for light, started cutting up watermelons so that they could do what they came to do, which is take care of people who needed some help in a rough time. And it was just, if that does not sum up our community of, we know what we're doing, we're here for a purpose, get out of my way and let me help. And it worked out great, obviously. But now that is a day, as much as I love that picture, that is a day I hope to never repeat. And I don't think we'll have to, because we were able to, over the last year, install backup generators at both shelters. So one less thing to lose sleep about. If weather gets bad, and this has happened, that event has happened 2 to 3 times over the last 3 years, we don't have to worry about having a place to be and being able to continue to operate. And that is, again, a reflection of what we were able to contribute over the last year. So if we look ahead, how does all of that happen? This is a financial review, important for this kind of report to the community. And you can see on the left side is income, 2020 compared to 2021. And I'll just pause there for a second. And you can see we break out our income by support we get from the community through individual donors, through local businesses, churches, through grants, through local foundations, and so on. We do get some government support on some of our programs, and then we collect rent and have program fees on some of the other work we do when we can. And I'll tell you, 2020 was a banner year for us, because there was a lot happened, and we saw a lot of big hearts throughout COVID, and including in 2020, people who got their stimulus checks and said, dropped the equivalent in the mail with a note to us and said, I don't need this, but I know people who do. Right. So 2020 was a banner year for us in a lot of ways. We knew that, and we expected that 2021 would be a little bit less, right? As everybody went on through the pandemic, some got more back to normal, and 2021 topped it in all respects. So again, it's I can't express enough our gratefulness to the community for support through this. On the other side, the expense side, you can see pretty comparable, but again, a reminder that the vast majority of the resources that we have available to us goes into programming for all of that: crisis housing, supportive housing, prevention programs, stable housing programs. We are very efficient in making sure that the community support is targeted where they want it, which is helping the folks that it's intended for. So I'm going to start wrapping up a little bit by looking forward. Looking forward, we talk about balancing our roots and our branches. It is always tempting to grow more programs and to expand. Those are the branches on our tree, the things that you can see and that provide shade, if you will, for when we need shade. We've got to be good stewards of all that, make sure that our roots are strong too, and can support that tree and those branches. So we are always trying to do that balance of what does the future look like? What can we sustainably support? What are ongoing needs in this community, and what are temporary needs related to the last couple of years of COVID? So that's some of the leadership discussions that we're having. We also know that Pillars is not alone in this work by any means. There's a lot of other nonprofit agencies, and there's a lot of attention and concern with county and city and villages. Affordable housing and poverty is a big and complex issue, and it's not. We're in this together. So Pillars is a full supporter of any community activities that talk about kind of how do we increase affordable housing and increase services. You've heard me a number of times, Brett, how important the community is for us. Our looking forward, we need to continue to engage the community. And one of the biggest hits we had was volunteerism over COVID. No surprise, and no judgment over people who said, I'm going to back off of my volunteer work for a while. But we saw in the early stages of COVID, we saw a 90% drop in some of our volunteerism for, we every day, a meal served at each shelter, right, for 120 to 130 people, as well as a lot of volunteerism that supports with a number of other things. That's coming back, but it hasn't come back to pre-pandemic levels yet. So we're going to engage the community for volunteerism, for financial support, for outreach and awareness, because that's important. And we're going to continue to work on the culture. So as proud as I was about those 4 statements, and 9 out of 10 people who work here are like, I'm in. We are great at responding to crisis. We are great at rallying around what needs to be done, and we are great at getting the job done. There's a shadow side to that. Every strength comes with maybe some liabilities. And what we worry about on that is it sustainable, and is that as disciplined and thoughtful and planned out as possible? So our role in the culture is to preserve that can-do attitude while making sure now, especially with a relatively new workforce, given the turnover we've had, that we've got the knowledge and the competence and the procedures and the discipline in place to be able to deliver that in a smooth and effective and ongoing way. And that's a bit of a roots and branches analogy as well. But we've got a real focus on our culture, and that work with Illumix and the UTech group is really exciting and going to pay off for us in the long run. Just a comment on the pictures here. That's Betsy Bourne's on the top, and she and I were out in the woods one day and found this makeshift home out of 2x4s and blankets. And that is not the Fox Cities. That is not what we want. That is what we are working, is to connect with anybody who is thinking that is a necessary or adequate way to live, and to be able to connect and provide services and get them to thrive in another way. And the picture on the bottom is one that I snapped when we were under one of the bridges. There was an encampment under one of our bridges, and this rock was there. And I don't know if that was left by a member of our community just as a way of sending a loving message, or if that's something that somebody who was living there found and kept as a little bit of a totem for their own strength and hopefulness to get through the day. And either way, it kind of works okay, right? If somebody is offering peace and love and desiring a better future for somebody, we are all about that. And I think that's probably a great way to encapsulate the work we do. So I'll transition to Lisa now with the next slide, and going back to Teddy Roosevelt on this one. This is, I do think it is the best prize that life has to offer, is to be able to give of oneself and have concern for others and help them get to a better place. And that is certainly hard work. And we are happy to be able to work hard at work that's worth doing. So that's my recap on the year. I'll turn it back over to Lisa to talk about the longtime foundation that made 2021 possible for us.
Thank you, Joe. So as Joe mentioned, you're looking at the adult shelter, Pillars Adult Shelter, which prior to our merger, I think most of you are aware that Pillars was formed in 2018 through the merger of 3 housing organizations, one of which was the Fox Valley Warming Shelter, now Pillars Adult Shelter. That's what you're looking at here on screen. And there were 4 people who were pivotal in getting the Fox Valley Warming Shelter up and running back in 2006 or so. They were Don Stegbauer, William Gilbo, Peter Beckers, and Therese Jansen. And both Peter and Therese passed away late in 2021. And we recognized the 2 of them as part of our report to the community last week, and want to do so again this morning. That is not Connie Rather, that is me. Connie was meant to present this last week, and at the very last minute was unable to. So this is what you get when you try to adjust slides before having coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning. So a word about Peter. Peter was the treasurer on the board of the Fox Valley Warming Shelter. And as Connie Rather, who worked with him as volunteer coordinator and employee of the warming shelter at that time, said he was always in to pick up checks. And as he did so, he just happened to have tickets to a McDowell male chorus concert in which he sang. He was usually on his way to another volunteer gig, maybe driving a vet to a medical appointment or off to the hospital to volunteer. We were lucky to have Peter's wife, Carol, and daughter Lori with us last week. He was always talking about his family when he was there at the shelter and pitching in. Another current board member of ours, Amy Van Harpen, remembered Peter as the person who handed the baton to her as she became treasurer on the Fox Valley Warming Shelter Board. He had great processes set up, but what most impressed her about Peter was his ability to sort of release the reins to Amy, and as things evolved, to let her change and grow and alter that role on the board. She was very impressed by him and enjoyed seeing him sing. She accepted some of those tickets that he offered to the McDowell Male Chorus concerts and appreciated the chance to see another side of Peter. Also want to speak briefly about Therese Jansen. Connie, the former volunteer coordinator and current Pillars board member, remembers that Therese filled in. There was a 3-month gap in volunteer coordination, which is no small feat when you rely on 2 meals a day, breakfast and dinner, at a shelter that operates overnight. She stepped in, hauled 20 gallons of milk in once a week. She was not a young woman at the time, but she made all that magic happen for the shelter. And Connie said that if she hadn't known Therese was a nun in her younger years, she would have never guessed it, because when Connie thinks nun, she doesn't think of Therese. She had a very witty sense of humor. Connie often didn't get the joke until Therese had left the building and figured out what she was teasing and what her eyes were twinkling about. And Amy Van Harpen, our current board member, remembers that Therese caught her attention with her sense of humor and ability to get things done. She was a great role model for women, strong, competent, caring, respectful. She was comfortable with who she was, genuinely kind, and also direct in moving the board to action. That Amy really enjoyed meetings when Therese was around. So we all know, no matter what organization we work in, that we're always standing on the shoulders of others. And we really just wanted to take a moment this morning to recognize some very pivotal people in the service that we all now provide. You as donors, as volunteers, as partners and friends of Pillars. We stand on the shoulders of some folks who also served, and served hard, and served well. So from celebrating those on whose shoulders we stand, we shift to celebrating those who really, really made a difference for Pillars in 2021. We recognize both a Volunteer of the Year and a Community Partner of the Year each year. And I am going to hand the floor and the mic to Caitlin Wheeler, our volunteer manager, to present our Volunteer of the Year award.
Thanks, Lisa. So I do see that we have several volunteers on today, which is super exciting. And I just want to say a word of thank you to all of our volunteers. They're all very passionate about what we do here at Pillars, which is just a great group of people to work with. But we're here recognizing Fawn Grothoff as our Volunteer of the Year for 2021. And I'm going to say a little bit about her and the work that she does here at Pillars. So in 2021, Fawn volunteered 305 hours at multiple locations at Pillars, so she's very connected. You'll find Fawn regularly welcoming our clients from behind the front desk at our adult and family shelter, bagging lunches and helping with laundry as a late night host at our adult shelter every Sunday night. So she's a staple of our volunteers there. And then she also serves dinner at our adult and family shelter with her family once a month. And when we needed extra support at our front desk at our main office over on Hancock Street, Fawn was one of the volunteers that stepped up and said yes to helping out there as well. But we're not recognizing Fawn today just for the countless hours that she's spent in Pillars locations. Fawn was selected for this award because in the short time that I've known her, I can clearly see the passion that she has for Pillars and our clients. She's always consistent and dependable, and she models our organization's values of respect, collaboration, empowerment, and grit. I know that when Fawn trains our new volunteers in whatever location she's at, she not only shows them the tasks they need to complete, but also encourages them to get to know our clients and also hold strong boundaries. I really admire Fawn for her ability to practice self-care so that she can be a better person and better volunteer. So it's my honor to introduce Fawn to you. She's here this morning and she's going to share just a few words about her experience.
Hello. Okay. Hi. I don't think I can redo the same speech I did that night, just saying. But I do appreciate all the work that Pillars does do for the community as a whole. I got into volunteering as a means to reconnect with myself and understand myself and meet new people. Through that, I have met a lot of wonderful people. I met pretty much everyone behind the scenes at Pillars. You guys are all amazing. I love you all. And I've met a lot of other volunteers like myself. It's been a growing experience for myself, along with just getting that heartwarming feeling of helping other people. It's the thing that I was really looking for, and I'm hoping to continue to further and help this wonderful organization that I truly believe in. You guys are all amazing, and I love every one of you. So thank you for this honor. And yeah, I wish I could repeat that same speech. It was so awesome, but it was so on the fly.
It was awesome. I did all of this with a script at our report to the community because I was worried I was going to lose my spot. But Fawn got up there and spoke from the heart and did a great job. So thank you so much, Fawn, for sharing your time and talents with us. I'm going to pass it back over to Lisa for our Community Partner of the Year award.
This is applause in the deaf community. So go ahead, and if you've got your camera on, make it happen. Thanks, Fawn. All right. We also recognized last week our Community Partner of the Year, and this community partner was not just a partner of the year last year, but for many, many years, in fact, 11. The E2F program seems simple on the surface. E2F stands for empty to full. What happens with the program, which was conceived in a dream, literally, by Cindy McSwain, is that groups like faith communities, as an example, will receive 70 pans like the one you see the gentleman holding on the left, with a recipe taped onto the lid. That recipe calls for you to put ingredients in the pan. You don't cook them, you don't bake them, you freeze the pan, and then you return that pan to an agreed upon location where typically 70 or so pans are collected all at one time. This works really well in faith communities, as you can imagine, because during worship services one week, pans are passed out. During worship services the following week, pans are collected. And through this program, which I have been fortunate enough to see in action, I'm a member of First Presbyterian Church. Our former Associate Pastor Paul Huxtable is also here, so he knows all about this program as well. Cindy McSwain and the 4 faith communities who've been regular participants have been able to provide 66,000 individual meals to people staying with us at Pillars, which is astonishing. It's just astonishing to think about. It was a godsend during 2021 when COVID continued to decimate our volunteer pool. Our staff were already overextended, given all of the additional precautions and steps that needed to be taken to keep clients safe through COVID, and having to prepare dinner as well added an extra burden on those folks. But when you can take 5 or 6 pans, pop them in the oven for a couple of hours, take them out and have dinner ready, that's a whole lot easier than preparing a meal from nothing. So this program really, really mattered from its outset, and it really, really, really mattered over the last couple of years. So the E2F program and Cindy McSwain were honored at last week's report to the community. And there's Cindy with Joe and me and her pillar of recognition and a pan, always a pan. I am gonna stop sharing here. We have about 15 minutes left. So we have 10 minutes for your questions. And I hope you will ask them. You can either unmute and speak your question, or if you're feeling, a little subdued, haven't had quite enough coffee yet, feel free to use the chat function. Just slide down to the bottom of your screen and you'll see some icons. There's a word balloon, and you can type your question into the chat. And the community engagement team are watching to see what your questions are. They will give voice to them, and we'll have the right member of our team respond.
This is Laura Kleist.
Hi,
And
Laura.
I would like to know the contact information for E2F.
Ooh, great question. And one that I cannot spout off the top of my head, but why don't I get you in touch with Cindy McSwain? I know where to find you, Laura.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is Tom Jansen. Can you hear me?
Tom, yes, thank you. I
Yes.
didn't realize that was you. I'm so
Well,
glad you're here.
I have a question about finances, something less dramatic than what you've been talking about. But when I saw the graph, it looked to me like expenses are exceeding income. Is that accurate, that you're operating at a deficit?
Joe, I'm kicking that one to you.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, there are years where that happens, and there are years where it doesn't. There's that gets to be a complicated answer because some of it deals with restricted funding that comes in that is reserved for future years. I'd be happy to go over that in some detail. We generally are positive on our overall income. Over the last year, some of the things that you'll see there are we had a bit of a surplus, and on that whole roots branches discussion, what we did was we've actually reserved, we self-restricted a little bit of the surplus that we have because of the generous giving, to make sure that we were able to sustain our increased wages over the next couple of years while we continue to increase the engagement of the community. So we're fortunately, the high level answer to your question is we're in a good spot right now, and we are optimistic for the next couple of years to be able to kind of grow into some of the branches that we've added to the tree. But that fluctuates, and in COVID, with government grants and with even the Paycheck Protection Program, the actual financials that you see in the charts swing around quite a bit. But we do have net income over the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, I don't.
Yes,
Would you be willing to share your special connection to the program this morning?
well, how far back do you want me to go?
Just
I
go ahead.
I was there at the start of the warming shelter. I had been when my brother Orville died, just at the inception of COTS. COTS was just finishing the structure on College Avenue when my brother died in 1999. So Don Stegbauer and Carol Stegbauer and Benjamin, his name was Lee Benjamin, were primarily responsible for running it, but I was doing a lot of the financial with running a lot of that. And then Don wanted to start the warming shelter because the COTS was not exactly dealing with the street homeless as he wanted to focus on. So he and the people you mentioned got it started, and I did the legal work, and I was involved in getting a 501c3 and so on. And from the sidelines cheering my sister Teresa on. I was just thinking as you're talking about her, one person who's not hardly ever mentioned in any of this is my mother. It is without a doubt, and I get a little choked up when I talk about this, because my mother would be one of those people. My father died when I was 14. And my mother somehow held it all together and was always helping people less fortunate than her. And as I look back now, and after she passed away and reviewed her stuff, she was the one who should have been the recipient. But she instilled that sense of service certainly in Therese and my brother Orville, and I had another brother, Jerry, who was a professor at Duquesne University, who virtually gave everything away, literally everything away. I think Therese really reflected mother's desire to help. One interesting aspect of Therese you need to appreciate, she went to a convent at age 14, right out of 8th grade. And that was routine in those days. And she left the convent at age 39. If you can imagine, at that age, she had never had to worry about where her next meal was coming from, never handled a checkbook, any of that. So she was an amazing person when you see what she's done after she got out. So she was a great person.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions? I'm checking the chat. I see thanks being expressed for Joe for his many years of leadership. He has been a pivotal part of Pillars and has made a huge impact. Joe, do you want to share a little bit about what happens next?
No, not really, but I will. I assume folks know that I've announced my retirement, which is planned for sometime this fall. The person you see in one screen is Jennifer Winding, who is joining us today. Jennifer is conducting the search for my replacement, which I believe was just posted yesterday. So Jennifer's done a great job learning about Pillars, kind of who we are and what makes us tick and what we need going forward, is going to help us in that search for my successor in the role. Yeah, I guess I keep saying there'll be time for this discussion. This has been the pinnacle of my career. Everything I've done in the 30 years prior, right through Kimberly Clark and at Plexus, felt like mere preparation to be able to do this work. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to lead this in our community. And everybody asks what's coming next, and I don't know. I'm leaving that open for it because I know there's a better plan out there than I can come up with. So I am going to finish strong at Pillars, and then I am going to be open to whatever comes next. And while I'm open to that, I'm going to spend a lot more time with my wife, Jean, and we're going to just enjoy things for a while.
Joe, Tom Jansen, if I can add two things to that. One, congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for your service. But secondly, I have, quote, been retired, unquote, for 8 or 9 years or 10 years, is hard to tell. Let me tell you, that's a misnomer. All that happens is the assignments change.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not sure what comes next, but I know it's going to be good, and I'm looking forward to it. And a big part of this, I started with that leadership team, and there is a lot to be proud of there, and there's a lot of confidence the community should have that that is the team that does the work day in and day out, really knows it well, and does it very well. This place is in good hands, for sure.
Yep.
Will members of the leadership team who are on the call raise those hands, the good hands that the agency will? Yeah, just wanted to be sure you knew a few of us were here. Thank you, Joe. I am going to, team, are there any other questions, pressing questions that need answering before I close us out? We are happy to answer any of your questions, so do continue to chat those in as I wrap us up here. But many of you will have received a report to the community in the mail if you didn't and you would like one, sorry, an annual report in the mail. If you would like one and didn't receive one, you can email events@pillars.org to either get a copy or get some extra copies to share. We're happy to have you pass those around all over town. You can also read that report online at the URL that you see on screen. Also want to remind you that it's been fascinating to me how advancing slides has been a challenge this morning. Anyway, we have several social media channels through which you can keep in touch with us on an ongoing basis. I promise that if you like or follow us on any of the channels that you see at left, you will have your heart warmed regularly by fun photos of things like us loading 3,500 pounds worth of paper towels into the basement at the adult shelter, or seeing statistics about the service that we provide. So find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube as well. We're out there on YouTube. So some fun videos there. We will gather again as a Pillars community on June 2nd, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. for conversations over coffee. Our topic has not yet been set, so stay tuned on social media for more information on that. And know that we also have planned for sometime in May, date yet to be determined, a tour of one of our newly opened single room occupancy homes. So another chance to connect in person with the mission of Pillars. So watch social media or our website for more information on that. And lastly, just want to thank you for joining us. You truly are part of the Pillars team, regardless of the role you play, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a donor, whether you're a community partner, municipality representative, legislative rep, media. We really appreciate the partnership that all of you fulfill and in making sure that episodes of homelessness are rare and brief and that everyone has a place to call home here in the Fox Cities. So thanks so much for being here this morning. And our team will stick around for a few minutes. If you have a question you want to answer or want answered not in front of the big group, there will be a smaller group to take care of that. So the rest of you have a great Thursday, and we'll see you in June.